In today's video, I am sharing my process of how I meal prep grains. As you know, we are living in tough economic times, and one of the ways of being budget friendly and yet ensuring that your household and family eat healthy, nutritious meals is incorporating a lot of the grains in your diet, because they are not only nutritious, they have a lot of fiber, and of course they can substitute proteins so that you don't have to keep buying the more costly proteins like chicken, like meat. You can buy maybe once a week, but still have several grains. And as you know, if you incorporate several grains in your diet, some of them have a particular nutrient that others don't. So having several of them distributed throughout your week or throughout your month, I know is very helpful. So that's why I thought to share it here. And I'm also sharing that because one of us on this channel, and of course I like to listen to what we are saying, shared how I can share a bit more of practical content. And I thought one of the practical contents to share is what I am doing in the kitchen, and that's why I'm sharing today's video that I trust as we journey together. It will be a blessing. You can learn a leaf or two or something that I do in order to make your own journey a blessing as you meal prep for your family, as you plan for your family. Welcome to Formations of a Noble Woman. This is a channel where we share matters womanhood and the woman seeking the mind of God concerning the same, so that you and I can align our lives to His will and purpose. And if you're new here and this is the kind of content you like, kindly consider subscribing, hit the notification bell. You'll be notified every time I upload new content. I upload this kind of content that is part of biblical womanhood, part of being hospitable, part of doing the will of God, so that as a woman you will glorify Him in every area of your life. Before we continue, as is always our custom, we will pray so that we can trust the Lord that this video will be a blessing, not only to me, but to you as well. Please, Father God, be with us. Grant us your help, your fruitfulness. Make what I'm sharing very clear to my viewers. Grant that we will each identify with this as we seek to glorify you in our homes, in our households, in our kitchens, with our hospitality. So Father, please be with each of us in Jesus' name. Amen. Before we continue, in case you're joining me for the first time, my name is Clara, a homeschooling, homemaking, working from home mom of two. I am passionate about women and womanhood and all matters surrounding that, and looking at that from a biblical perspective. I pray that this video will be a blessing. So let's go back to the video. I began by soaking my grains. Thankfully, most of them were selected, because usually I have organized with the lady I buy from to help me with the selection, removing the debris, so that I just come and work on them, because that can be quite some work. So I have begun by boiling in my pressure cooker the black-eyed beans. I would say a pressure cooker is just a wonderful investment, especially if you want to do things really fast as a busy homemaker. These beans we were given by a friend, and we were really grateful for that, considering the time of the economy in which we are. But they were really dirty, and I would say for a busy mom, you can do what I have done. I requested my family just to stay back for 30 minutes and help me select them. This was just after breakfast. These were 2 kilograms. Really needed a lot of work, and we worked on them, the four of us, and at least we were able to do it, I trust, in about 30 minutes. Now, I have gone ahead this evening with the ones I had soaked the previous night, and gone ahead and boiled them, the black-eyed peas, the lentils, the noe, or those big black beans as you saw. And then now I have finished up with my ndengu. Yeah, I worked on this for 2 days in the evening, so it didn't take me a lot of time during supper time. So I was boiling, making supper, which mostly included some of the grains so that I don't have to make something extra, and then went ahead and worked on my grains. Now I have started with one of them. I'm using this basic recipe of frying my onion, adding in my garlic and ginger, and then once it gets to that golden color, I add in my onions and then my carrots. I won't show you what I'm doing with most of the grains unless I do something different. But this is the basic recipe I use for all the grains, because what I argue is that what I will need to do differently is the after, when I need to get them out of the freezer and then I can be creative with them. But this time when I need to just get them to the freezer, I need to just use this basic recipe so that in case I don't have time to do anything else, I can just add in water, make the stew a little soupy, and then we are good to go with some rice or chapati or whatever else. So you can see I have now added in my carrots. I will allow them to cook for a few minutes so that also the tomatoes can get tender. And then I add in some of the spices. I keep working around with a number of spices. So if you have your favorite spices, you can use. But I know there are people who don't like spices. They just like the natural ones. So again, feel free to leave out the spices and work with the natural ones. Of course, you've seen I've not used any dania or any hoho. These are things that usually I prefer to add in when I have defrosted my grains, and so that they are still fresh, the dania and hoho, if I need to use them. So for this one, I just use the onion, tomato, garlic, ginger, tomato, carrot in everything. Well, I come from a place where we really love carrots, but I think they are healthy, so I don't mind them in most of my grains. And then spices. So I will allow the spices to cook for a few minutes. And then we will go ahead and add in the first grain that I'm working on. And I'm working on the black-eyed peas. We have just come to love this black-eyed. It's really tasty. So again, one of the things I do is I don't add in a lot of stew so that it's easier for us to store. But also, I also don't do that, like I said, so that you just have the best food that you can now get creative with when it doesn't have a lot of soup. So I've added in perhaps a cup or less, about a cup like you saw. So I'll just allow it to cook in a way that everything comes together, and then we will be done with this stew. Something happened with my camera lens. I think it got some stain from the food as I was cooking. That's why it's a bit blurry, but I hope you can get the point. So now I get on to the next cooking that I need to do. Again, I used the same basic process, and this one is already done, so I have set it aside. So I used the same process for the other grains, so I may not show you unless again I'm doing something different. So I have done the same thing with these lentils. They almost overcooked. As you know, once you soak lentils, you have to be very careful with them, especially in the pressure cooker. I think I had been using firewood so much I had forgotten I needed to give them even less time than I did, perhaps 10 minutes, because I think I gave them 15 minutes and that was too much, but they were still good. At least they were not all crushed. Now this is something that I did with the black-eyed peas for supper. I wanted to just show you. So this is what I mean. I add in a little more liquid. This one I added in coconut cream and it was really nice. Allowed it to cook for about 10 to 15 minutes for the coconut cream to cook, and we were good to go with that one for supper with some rice. So we now go to the next set of grains. This one again I'm showing you because I'm doing it a little differently. I've done my onions. I have added in, as you can see, my ginger and garlic. And as I'm doing that, I am boiling the yellow beans that you saw us working on in the pressure cooker. The other thing I love about the busyness of the home is when you do your grains at the same time, you don't have to keep washing your pressure cooker. That's why you can see it's not necessarily very clean, but it is clean in that it's boiling grains. I don't have to keep washing it. So I've just done my onion, ginger and garlic. I'm not adding any tomatoes to this one. These are the dried peas that I had just boiled earlier, and I've just added in some salt and pepper and a little water. I want these ones to just get hot, just everything to come together like I said, so that it gets really hot and then it will be done. The reason I'm leaving this one that way is because I want to work with it with some recipes that just need it like that. I can add it to mokimo. I can also make samosas with it now that we are working in an economy where we just need to be creative with the less expensive yet healthy foods. So that's why I have left it dry like that. So I'm just waiting for most of the water, really, because I didn't put in a lot of water, to go and it dries out. Being careful because it looks like it can stick in the pan. Of course, you may not hear the noise because there's a lot of talking and conversation. That's why I muted the video, but I'm just checking on it to make sure it doesn't burn. So with this one, we are now going to fry the noe, or the big beans. I don't know what they are called in English. If I find the name, I'll write it on the screen. Someone told me they are very nice, so I thought, let me try them this time. I just put in a lot of water, I think accidentally. So these ones, I will have to store them a little differently, as you will see later. I don't like working with very soupy grains for storage because they can be cumbersome to store. I had to change the sufuria or pan because the other one was too small with all the water that I had added in the beans. Yeah, so these are beans that we have just boiled. You remember the yellow beans? So again, I used the same procedure of onion, garlic, ginger, tomato, carrot, and there they are with just a little liquid. So stir everything up, allow it to get together with some spices, and then I'll be done. I had also had another type of beans, if you saw from the ones I had soaked, that again someone graciously gave us. So I again turned it into that stew for beans, and then half of the yellow beans and half of that type of bean I will turn it into githeri. Thankfully, I had already worked on this green maize some time back when I was doing an earlier meal prep, so it's been in my freezer. So because it's frozen, those ones I'm going to work on them the next day, because it's actually already late, it's after supper, and I just need to be done with the meal prepping for the grains today. So these are the ones I did this evening. The black-eyed peas, as you can see, the bean stew with the yellow beans. By the way, yellow beans are really tasty. There's the ndengu that I also did, the dried peas that I also did dry, like I explained, the other bean stew, the lentils, and finally the big beans, the noe, as I hear them called around here. So those are the ones we worked with. So this is the next day in the morning. You can see they are cooled down and they are holding together really well. So it really not cumbersome to store them in my Ziploc bags. That's why I don't like to store them with a lot of liquid, so that they are easier to store. In case the Ziploc bag has a hole, at least it can hold together. And then yeah, so like you saw the peas, I stored them in containers, you know, those little plastic containers. And that one I stored the noe with a lot of stew. I stored it in that big container because, like I said, it can be a bit cumbersome to work with it when it has so much liquid. I put the dried peas in those plastic containers, like I said, because I wanted to divide it into smaller portions so that I can use some for mokimo, a huge part of it for some samosa, and whatever else. I have even been thinking of turning some of it into tortillas, you know, just being creative, especially in this economy when things are really tough. Now I am just zipping up my Ziploc bags, trying to zip them in a way that they are not holding a lot of air, like you can see me do, and then we will be done and ready to store them in the freezer. Now, this is the evening, the second day actually, because I had my beans to turn into githeri, and that's what I've started with. One is for the other type of bean that I'm working with to make githeri, and this other one is the yellow beans. So in my githeri, incidentally, I don't like garlic and ginger for some reason, so I'm just working with my onion and tomatoes. Then I'll also put in some carrots. And of course, I've already mixed the carrots, by the way, with the tomatoes. The other thing I find easier to do as a busy homemaker is I'm preparing this because my time has really been busy, so I'm having to do a lot of meal preps in the evening. I don't even sit down to cut up things. I just start by cutting up the onion, and then the tomato and carrots, I cut them up as I am cooking, you know, stirring the onions, at the same time cutting up my tomatoes. That makes the process much faster. So I've just let the tomatoes get tender, I have added in the spices and they've cooked, and then I'll go ahead and divide the maize into two. So I had already prepared it earlier, boiled it, and so it was just ready to go into our beans, or rather to mix in with the beans. I will mix in the beans, beginning with those ones. I believe those are the yellow beans, and then the other type of beans. I forget the name, but it's just one of the types of the beans. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and stir everything up again. Add in a little liquid. I do the same thing also for githeri. I don't put a lot of liquid until later. My family likes soupy githeri, but I do the soup when I defreeze them. Again, like I said, so that you can be creative with your githeri, perhaps add in potatoes, then add in courgette, whatever vegetable you'd like, but you can get creative later. But for now, preparing your grains like this makes it very easy, because again, like I said, in case you find you don't have time, you can always remove your githeri, just add in a little water, and it's good to go like that, just the way it is, without really going into the trouble of starting to prepare it from scratch. So once I've brought everything together, I'll cover the githeri so that it can get hot enough, and then it will be ready. Hot enough without burning, because I'm not putting in a lot of liquid. So again, this is the last grain. I'm not showing you a lot because it's the same process. Onion, this time I've added in garlic and ginger. My tomatoes, allowed them to tenderize, added in the spices, allowed them to cook, and finally added in the njahe that again I boiled today, because like njahe also takes quite long to soak up really well. So I had soaked it the previous day and allowed it to just soak again through the night, and now came to prepare it today. So again, I happened to put in a little more fluid than I would have desired, but thankfully, because it had really softened well enough, by the morning when I needed to pack it, it was just compact. So that's the githeri ready, as you can see, and hot. So we will allow it to cool so that we pack it up again the next day. So everything again has mixed up really well with our njahe, so we are ready to go with the njahe. So I hope you can see that it's possible, especially when you trust the Lord to have a freezer. Even sometimes when you have a smaller freezer like I had for a number of years, with the space that you have, instead of just keeping your grains boiled, you can actually do this so that you reduce the time of working on it when you get it out of the freezer. So this is the next morning. Now I get to pack my githeri as well as my njahe. Again, njahe, because I want to use part of it for breakfast, I am simply going to store it in smaller plastic containers again, like see, to make it easier to get it out of the freezer with the small containers, just getting what I need. So that's the njahe and the githeri, the different kinds of beans, and we are done with a month's worth of grains, or even more than a month. I'm really hopeful that you enjoyed my process of meal prepping my grains for the month. Actually, some of them, as you saw, will go beyond 1 month. Some of them will get up to 3 months, a whole term. And I'm hopeful that you have learned something that you would incorporate in your own meal prepping so that you can be more fruitful as a homemaker. I hope to share more of this kind of content, especially in the kitchen, because I'm hoping that it would be a blessing to you. But if you want specific recipes, we have our channel that I will link in the description below, Recipes and Hospitality with Clara, where I try to share very specific recipes that some of the videos I've done here, I can point you to those ones. So in case you don't know about that channel, you could check it out so that you just find the process of making some of the delightful meals on a budget, especially in these times, these tough economic times. But we thank God that the just shall live by faith. As we trust Him, He will carry us through this season. Check out this right here that I hope will be a blessing to you, also just capturing my process of how I meal prep when I don't have time. I hope this one as well will be a blessing. It's vlog style, so I trust you will also find something helpful and identify with my process as well. So thank you so much for joining me. Look out for our next video that I trust will be a blessing to you. And until then, see you then. I'll see you in this video right here.